Hope everybody enjoyed their holidays and conference play, or I guess back to conference play. We get every now and then, and we've already played a couple of games, but busy week. It's been a good week. It's always nice to have a couple days of two-a-days and be able to really dial in with guys coming back and not having classes. It's an exciting time of year for a coach. Obviously, 2 road games this week and coming off one that was left a pretty bitter taste in our mouths. So we've had a good week of practice. Guys have really worked hard on some certain areas we've got to clean up on the offensive side of things, and got a great opponent in Indiana, one of the elite players in our conference, and Juwan Morgan, very versatile. I think he's the most versatile guy in our league. He's a guy that is shooting the three much better than he did a year ago. He's a guy that facilitates, and we've got to be very good at. And then obviously you add Langford to a veteran group, and you got a good basketball team in Indiana. So we'll have to play well, and we've got to be better offensively than we have been, and it's been a focal point in our practices this week.
Given the last 2 tough losses and a challenging road opponent, what's the mindset you've asked of your team for this game?
Well, it's no different than any other game. I mean, it's conference play. Let's execute. You know, we've kind of stayed with the theme very much. You know, we've got to become tougher, and that's the one thing that we're striving to do, so we can be disciplined. We didn't run very much of anything with any precision in the Florida Atlantic game, and you know, you can't go on the road and win if you don't execute, and you can't go on the road and win. And you know, we hold a team scoreless for 7 minutes and 41 seconds the other night, and can't win, and didn't, because we ran bad offense, and we've got to be better on that end. So we've spent a lot of time talking about toughness and being disciplined so we can execute.
Iowa with a lot of production, and Trent maybe not so much. Did the pendulum swing a little bit too far the other way in that way?
Trent's smart, man. We saw Iowa get going a little bit, and Trent didn't have got a couple good looks early, and they didn't fall. And Trent's a guy that's the ultimate teammate. I mean, it doesn't affect him at all. You should watch his last 6 minutes of that ball game. Him denying and him working on the defensive end, and Trent's a guy who gets it. And Iowa got to go a little bit, and you know, felt like he had the hot hand, and now we've got to find a little better balance from the standpoint. We don't need one guy taking 20 shots every single night. That doesn't work. But yet Iowa had it going and got it going early, and Trent played to that.
Brad, part of your toughness that you talked about is that you've fallen behind teams towards the latter part of games, yet found a way to come back, most of them, but yet you're not winning those. Is that part of what the toughness aspect is?
Absolutely. Toughness is doing what you have to do when it's really, really hard, and when it's not easy. And yet it's also doing it when you've got a lead. And you know, I thought defensively we did some great things in the first half of the game against FAU, and yet offensively, you know, we had the mindset of going in and throwing the ball inside, and we missed a lot of chippies, and that was frustrating. But you still can't not execute and not set good screens just because you're tired or fatigued. We got to get through that.
This may be holding this team back in the execution part on offense.
Oh, I just think it's understanding. It's in terms of being disciplined. I think it's a detail thing. You know, it's very important that the little things matter. The matter of 3 feet, whether you catch the ball, free throw line extended or not. You've got to fight for your position. The game's very physical. You can't let guys bump you off cuts. You've got to set your cut up. You've got to go screen. You can't stop 2 feet short. Little things like that are the details that matter, that we're not doing a very good job of. And we've really emphasized that. Just simply not cutting hard. Putting the ball on the wrong hip when you square up and look so you can pass it. Those are all little detailed fundamental things And when you don't do those become more than minor issues.
I mean, a few of the guys were attacking the basket a little more towards the end of the FAU game. Is that something you maybe need to see even more of, just in terms of the offensive end?
Yeah, I mean, Scott, when you don't shoot any free throws in the first half of the FAU game, that's a problem. And you know, one of the things that I've always taken pride in is that's an easy way to score, is get to the free throw line. And we talked about that ad nauseum. You know, throughout the start of the season was, you know, making sure we got to the foul line, and we're not doing that. And you know, you can't settle for threes because it's easy. You take threes because they're the right shot, and sometimes driving a closeout is tough. It's physical. It's getting hit, and we're not doing that enough. And yeah, we did that a little better. We got to the foul line, I think 19 times the second half. We made our first 15 or 16 and missed our last 3. But you've got to attack.
Aaron said you challenged him ahead of the last game. You responded with 20 points. Anyone else that you're maybe kind of putting a little extra stock into heading into the Big Ten schedule?
Yeah, we've got to get better play out of everybody. But you know, I think the one thing that I'm looking for is, you know, from some of these young guys is consistency. You know, you can't say we're a freshman anymore when some of these guys have played. They haven't played in Big Ten games, enough of them yet, but yet we've played in a lot of high caliber games against quality opponents, and now we got to find consistency. And Georgie's a guy that we need consistent play from, and you know, we've got to almost to the man be better. And you know, Kip's another guy that we've spent a lot of time challenging this week to be find his form, find his groove, have his confidence, and you know, we need Kipper to be good.
John, you spent a lot of last year talking about fighting for your culture. Do you feel like the team is bought in right now as we turn to the new year?
Oh yeah, I love this team. This team this team's got a sixth sense about the want to and the desire, and you know, they're showing up every day, working their tail off, and they're showing up and meeting in the locker room, and this team likes each other. They play together, and yet it's hard to win. It's hard to win when you're going through growing pains, and we had some tough losses early, and now we've got to continue to fight and grow. But this team has been, not 1 second have I doubted our chemistry and our togetherness.
Are you seeing anything with Kipper mechanically with his shot that is maybe why he's been off recently?
Yeah, he's shooting a little stiffer maybe in terms of his legs, not getting quite as much lift. He's gotten his elbow in a little bit, but we've talked about that. Just got him back to the free throw line, doing some you know, some things mechanically, and you know, shooting can be the great enigma of basketball. You know, it can be such a mental thing, and yet the smallest little thing can get you going. And he shot it really well in practice yesterday, so we think we're back on the right track.
Looked like Georgie was a little confused on his 5th foul, and is there still a growing process for him to knowing what is a foul in this league and what isn't, or any of the other guys?
Well, I wouldn't say that there was no doubt it was a foul, but I think the one thing that you know, that probably stemmed more from frustration than anything else. He knows what a foul is and what it's not, and you know, he had a tough night and missed some bodies. He knew it was a game that we were going to try to go to him early and often, and you know, between fouls and some missed easy opportunities, you know, it became a frustrating night for him.
After the game Saturday, Aaron said it was kind of a reality check loss and to look in the mirror. What have you seen from those guys kind of taking it on their own and their response after that game?
Well, we've had a couple really good days of two-a-days, and we've gotten after it, and we've gotten up and down a lot. There's been a lot of game simulation, and there's been, like I said, it's one of the things I love about this group is resiliency, and you know, it's never varying very far from what our purpose is and what our goals are. And we have to continue to work to get better, and they've done that this week. So yeah, you're not going to just show up and beat people, and that was the reality check I think he was talking about. Was, you know, we've got to play two halves, and we've got to execute on both ends of the court.
You mentioned Iowa being the hot hand against FAU. Was that maybe just good to see him get going offensively, you know, for the first time in a couple of games?
Yeah, I think that we saw him shoot some threes. We saw him, he got to the rim and he missed a couple. We saw him attack the rim again, which is nice to see. And I think we start to see a well-rounded basketball player, and that's good. And now we got to get him and Trent and Kipper and all those guys together. Then we become a really good offensive team. We've shot so many, and I say this all the time. Offense is like music, and there's a certain rhythm to it, and there's certain flow that has to happen. And we didn't have that. Nobody knew when a guy was going to be open or a guy was going to shoot, because we were just off in our execution. And we have guys over dribbling when we don't need to over dribble, and missing screens when a guy's coming wide open, or delivering the ball a second late when we come off something and we're open. And that becomes out of rhythm and out of sync, and that's something that we've worked really hard to try to look at past films and see how this works when we do it right.
Are there any maybe parallels you can draw between Io and Romeo, both highly regarded guards that stayed home?
I think just that. I guess I haven't looked at it much beyond that. Romeo's a terrific talent. He's a guy that's, both of them have been on the national scene in their own states, and I have tremendous respect for him staying at home, and he's proven to be every bit as good as advertised as I think Io has been. I think they're two of the top, freshmen in the league. You throw Brezdikas in at Michigan, and you got three elite guys that are young guys that are making an impact on their teams in the Big Ten.
Easy to see why Indiana's tough to guard, Romeo and Juwan, but defensively they're top 20 defensive efficiency. What do you see from them that makes them good at that end?
Well, they're veterans. I mean, they had the kid I really like and that has made an adjustment extremely quick is Fennessy. At the point, he's a guy that, his IQ is well beyond his years. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Everything starts at the point, offensively and defensively, and then Juwan is a guy that has an extremely high IQ. He covers for so many things with his quickness, with his ability to see things a pass ahead. He's a very good shot blocker for a 6'8" guy. And then a guy that's made a lot of improvement on the defensive end is Josh Smith. And Josh uses his athleticism. Last year he was probably a guy that was a liability for him, but this year has become a guy that is in the starting lineup because of how good he becomes defensively. And that's the key is there's Durham's a better guy defensively, and Romeo has great length, and Romeo's a guy that flies around. I've really admired him. I watched I don't know what game it was now, but he takes two charges, making weak side rotations and doing those things. And for a freshman to do those things, he's bought in at that end. So, yeah, this is a team that doesn't give you anything easy. You're going to have to make shots. And, they don't give you anything easy in transition. And that's a sign of a good team.
Brett, any update on Adonis or Tevin?
Tevian will not play again. And Adonis is back and will be in uniform and expected to play. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, bro.